What high school conspiracy turned out to be true at your school? There were rumors about a music teacher and a student, but they were both pretty dramatic people and did very little to dismiss the talk. So half the school wanted to believe it for the salacious thrill and half just waved it off as attention seeking and shit talking. Teacher got canned without explanation. Most of us just figured it was budget related. A math teacher filled in on his music theater roles. Years later I randomly caught up with the student and she said the rumors were true. She freaked out and tried to end things to shake off the reputation. And eventually the teacher showed up trashed and naked on her family's front lawn in the rain, yelling out for her like a really ducked up version of John Cusack from Say Anything but with less boombox and more drenched wang. There was a girl freshman year who went missing. She ended up being found dead in the river. There were rumors that she was seen on a bridge with her boyfriend the day she went missing. Nothing was ever found and they assumed it was suicide and accident. Fast forward 25 years and the boyfriend murdered his best friend of several decades, set a fire to cover it up, and went on the run. Couple days later he killed a woman at a rest stop in the bathroom to steal her car. They reopened the case about the high school girlfriend. That rumor was correct all along. He will be in prison the rest of his life. One of the CMC teachers was faking his doctorate. Never went to college at all. If I remember correctly, we weren't allowed to talk about it because he kept working there for the rest of the school year. He'd go absolutely apeshit on students who called him Mr. X over Dr. X though. It was ridiculous. That one of the cheerleaders was dating one of the teachers in his 40s. A year after graduation, they got married and had a baby. Still together 11 years later. That some of the teachers in our district are swingers with some of the doctors at our local hospital. How'd you all find that out? Lead in the water. Our high school tap water was dark brown and we weren't allowed to bring our own water bottles or get filtered water from the cafeteria without paying $3. We sent hundreds of emails asking the school board to look into it, but they said it was fine. In my senior year, a student did a science fair project on the illegal amount of lead in the tap water, forcing the school to investigate and fix all the taps. The principal was a member of the mob. Tell him if you're going to ask for a favor, yeah better return one back. Mr. Capone, I was just asking if I could go to the bathroom. I attended a newly opened high school that apparently used to be a school for troubled kids. Someone told me there were padded rooms somewhere in the school, so I skipped lunch with a friend one day to walk the halls and find them. They did exist, but by next year they were renovated into offices and storage rooms. I thought that was pretty interesting and seriously wondered what went on there before it was turned into a normal high school. We had one in my school that was a sort of stress room where kids with developmental disabilities could go and vent any serious frustrations without inconveniencing other kids' teachers. Their aides would escort them to the room and let them do what they needed to do, as long as they didn't purposely try to injure themselves or anything, and then they helped them get back to class once they'd tired themselves out. That's a weirdly positive spin on it. I only became aware of these rooms when parents began to sue over them. Essentially, when their disabled child would throw a fit, the school staff would throw them in these rooms and turn the lights off and just wait for the tantrum to burn out. Link. I'm thankful I never went to one of those schools. The worst I ever got was take a walk around the building when another student stole things out of my backpack. The teacher did get my stuff back though. Kid thought he was home clear. She stood in the door and made him fork it over. I wish I had experienced justice being done. I had stuff stolen from me constantly and the teachers just didn't want to get involved. We were literal kids. The adults have to get involved. Nope. What I learned was to just deal with it when people rip you off. And if you fight back you'll be the one in trouble. 4 students were caught doing cocaine on the boat after prom. 2 were rich and well connected and walked at graduation. 2 were not well connected and were expelled just before graduation. And the school got a new gym. That there were tunnels under the school that led to a hidden pool. Confirmed by my father who was a maintenance man for the school district. The tunnels were just utility tunnels. The pool is below the gym floor and was abandoned due to financial reasons. Those types of pools were popular for a few decades, but became incredibly expensive to maintain, not to mention safety issues. One of them is featured prominently in It's a Wonderful Life. My old math teacher was a WWF wrestler. I recognized him from my childhood days channel surfing and couldn't find anything about him on Google. But I was so sure it was him I just asked. I was right, laughing my butt off. He was supposed to pinch me if he was running out of air. There were 3 seniors in different years who married teachers shortly after graduating. One was my former prom date. This happened at our school with the 50-year-old band director. The student was pregnant when she graduated. Band director at my school was sleeping with a trumpet player student, and one of my best friends was sleeping with the intern band director. The summer before, both band teachers came to our room late one night at band camp and tried to hook up with me and that friend. I said no way. The band director ended up moving. That our ed teacher slept with his students. He was attractive, young, friendly, etc. Then suddenly a rumor went around the school that he was sleeping with a 6th former aged 17, 18. He was suspended for a while, but then decided to leave after he was cleared of wrongdoing. He got a new job at my cousin's high school across town. He did it again there, got caught with another 17-year-old, and was fired shortly after. No jail time though. My history teacher tennis coach made moonshine and hosted cockfights in his barn. I ended up becoming friends with his son, and it was all true. There were stories about the music teacher having sex with some of his students in exchange for solos, better grades, prestige, or jobs after graduation. They later turned out to be true. He was found guilty in 2018 and was given a 6-month prison sentence. He's barred from teaching and lost his pension. The news hit my dad rather hard, since they studied together at college and were good friends. Dad had no idea. My ex-best friend turned out to be a pedophile as well. Really ducks with your ability to trust people. A good family friend of ours knew him for over 10 years. Went to tons of BBQ, painted our walls at it, did some housework, had tons of other mutual friends with my dad, and their work friends ended up getting into drugs or something. He kidnapped a woman and murdered her. It was a huge deal in my hometown, and when they said they finally found the guy and the mugshot and name came up, we all were in shock and just couldn't believe it. We trusted him. I shook his hand a few times as a kid too. I'm sure my parents and everyone else world trusted him with their kids or family members, or what have you. We still have no idea what led him down that path. But the mugshot looked brutal, and it's like his whole soul was drained from his face. It wasn't the same smiling happy face I remembered. Just goes to show how much you really know someone, and how close all humans are from a breakdown. Anyone can change. It surprisingly doesn't take much. That my high school history teacher was putting whiskey in the 2-liter bottle of Pepsi he carried around every day. He was caught trying to buy liquor for some senior girls, and it resulted in a car chase we all watched. The police had to pull out the spike strips to catch him. What a disgrace. My teacher just drank out of a paper bag in class whilst harmlessly mumbling inane life stories at us until he was presumably forced to retire. 2 of the teachers hooking up on a Europe class trip. Gone for a week. Came back and the rumors started. 2 weeks later a rumor started he got divorced. Last week of school they were spotted at a restaurant together. Looked them up a couple years after graduating. They are married. Edit, I've read through the replies. No matches. It wasn't in America. Happy ending sort of. Not for his wife. Look at me. I'm the wife now. The other teacher. Probably. It was rumored a staff member helped a student run away and slept with him. Unfortunately it was true. Unfortunately the same staff member, after she was fired, had a graduated student at 19 ask to be her roommate. The next staff member agreed and ended up getting into legal trouble for trying to pimp the 19-year-old out. That the married drama teacher was bonking the substantially younger art teacher. He swore blind that not only was it not true, anyone believing it was should report it to the head because it was so unprofessional. Then a few years later they had a baby, kind of like the school bus driver in the Circleville writer case. She started receiving a bunch of anonymous letters accusing her of having an affair with the superintendent. Then they started sending them to her husband. Her husband got a phone call that was so bad he ran out and got into his truck and peeled off and ended up getting into an accident and getting killed. The bus driver completely denied she was having an affair. After her husband died, she got together with the superintendent, but swore up and down the relationship started after he died. Sure lady. There's a lot more to it, but that's the gist. It's actually a pretty fascinating case. That's sad for the husband. I wonder if the superintendent's wife wrote those letters. My best guess. 4 years before I got to my high school, there was a rumor that the admin assistant guy you went to when you got in trouble was doing drugs, selling drugs, and confiscating from students without turning over to the police. Well, about 5 years or so after I graduated, he got busted a couple towns away for possession of cocaine with intent to distribute. Edit, it was actually my junior high school admin assistant. And also thanks to whoever gave me my first award. That the first year baseball players were getting gang raped by older players for their hazing. I don't think we ever got a formal investigation, and the kid that came forward was already out of town by the time he told any authorities. But several senior and junior player were expelled that year. Okay, enough Reddit for today. Jesus Christ, that's ducked up. That our high school had an extensive network of underground tunnels and shelters left over from WWII. Sure enough, not long after I graduated, they were renovating one of the weight rooms that was either at basement level or partially underground, and they found an entire wild off room stocked with supplies from the early Cold War era that no one had remembered. So maybe the supposed tunnel system under the football field was a bit of a stretch. But there definitely were hidden shelter stockroom areas that had been forgotten about. Edit, the bomb shelter they found while renovating had supplies from the early Cold War era, not specifically WWII, but the conspiracy rumors had been pretty dang close. But everyone knows you need an underground tunnel for the opposing team to flee to the Holiday Inn. Philly fans love hammering people. Due to budget cuts or something, all of our metal and woodwork shop machines were to be taken away and replaced with worse versions. The shop teachers and drama teachers that were in the building at the time didn't like this idea, so they hid all the machines in a false wall somewhere in the building. The people came to pick them up, and they told them that people had already come to pick them up and that they were late. They did some looking around and couldn't find the machines and gave up. A few years and one principal later, they brought the machines back out from behind the walls. And that's how the smallest high school of our district with only around 450 students became the best school in the district to learn metal and woodwork. Edit, happened before my time at the school. This is just what I heard from the drama teachers, lol. The Cascave Montessori. That the driver's ed teacher, who was also an assistant football coach, was sleeping with female students. He was engaged, and his fiancée lived in another city. She was gorgeous. I think former Miss Jean State. Can't remember the state. Well, it ended up being true. He got suspended, and a short time later, can't remember, but I think 3 days, they found him dead in his garage. The rumor was sleeping pills, alcohol, and starting his car in a closed garage. Very sad. One of my geography teachers did a sex tape with his wife. He played Rocketman. Did it last a long time? No a-hole here. You could say his bags were packed. Pre-flight. We had a student teacher, so a reasonably attractive guy who was about 22 or 23. The rumor was that he was dating a girl in our class, a senior who was nearly 18. It turned out the rumor was wrong. He was dating her younger sister who was in 8th grade. That's a twist. English teacher who was close with students, not in a pervy way, but more like he was a fellow student instead of an authority figure, was hosting weekend poker parties with his closest students, where he would serve booze and weed. One weekend, someone prank called the cops claiming one of these parties was happening. They went to his place and there was one happening as described, but with porn on every TV in the house. Teacher was immediately fired, had his license revoked, and disappeared for a couple of years. Students tried protesting the firing because, well, he was the cool guy who gave them weed and booze. According to social media stalking, he's back teaching English at a high school a few hours south of my town now. Edit, we absolutely thought the dude was a perv once the story broke that there was porn involved. Everyone just thought he just wanted kids to think he was cool before the real story came out. Yeah, this totally qualifies as in a pervy way. There is no non-pervy way for an adult to watch porn with children. To clarify, the belief was that his intent was not pervy. When we found out porn was involved, absolutely pervy. We had a math teacher who was homosexual. This was in the 80s, so more of a thing then. Well, he was still closeted, but it wasn't much of a secret. He and the health teacher had a brutal rivalry. Talked shit about each other all the time. Played pranks. Hated each other, etc. The conspiracy was they were lovers, even though the health teacher was married. A few years after I graduated, I heard they were found out, and he had put a bullet through his brain. God, that's sad. Dance, theater, and music teacher had illegal boxing fights on the weekend. Like hosted them or participated. Hosted. That stuck in wild, dude. Conspiracy rumor was that the chemistry teacher was a pedophile. He was an older, overweight guy with a physical disability. I thought it was just people being judgmental assholes, and even defended him, until I looked it up. He was caught in a To Catch a Predator style sting at his last school trying to meet up with minors. I have no idea how or why the school hired him. I even sent a message to the superintendent, but never received a reply. What the heck? That's a crappy super. One of the regular subs we had was a drug addict, which isn't too surprising in the area I live in, plus he was in his 70s. He let it slip to multiple classes that he enjoyed smoking weed and doing crack. I mean weed sure, but crack. That our principal was a murderer, apparently. He had been acquitted a suspect in a different state of killing his wife, which was sealed. Years later, DNA convicted him. My algebra teacher was having an online affair. She would teach for about 5 minutes and then tell us to read to ourselves and do our work while she typed away on her computer. One day she just didn't show up. Turns out she up and left in the middle of the night to move out to Ohio to be with her internet boyfriend. Pretty mild, but I grew up in a town of 700 people, so it was huge news. Also, our volleyball track coach sleeping with senior girls. There was even a fist fight between 2 girls over this. I didn't really pay much attention until I got into high school and joined track. He had me doing weird stretches when he was directly behind me while I was bent over. I was super innocent and fairly dumb about sex. I knew it was creepy, but I just rolled with it, although I was uncomfortable. One of the boys on the track team I swore who hated me because he was always picking on me pulled me aside and told me what the coach was doing was perverted, and he was clearly excited the whole time. This kid went to the principal in my defense and the coach resigned that next year. I don't believe he was ever caught, but after he resigned I learned his wife was a former student of his, and their relationship started while she was in high school. Edit, I'm not sure the kid really liked me. He was a year older than me, and he went out of his way to make fun of me, but was my older cousin's best friend. I was probably looked at as more of an annoying little sister type, even though I rarely initiated speaking to him. He did make it a point to start standing behind me with his back turned to me, or watch over as I did my stretches with my back to the wall. I think he was just watching out for me for my cousin. He never tried anything or asked me out. He was more annoyed I went along without asking questions as to why the coach was having me do some clearly shady shit. One of the history teachers cheating on his wife with one of the English teachers. They were going to get a divorce anyways, and the second they were divorced they started dating. Science teacher cheating on his wife that has brain cancer with the art teacher. They got caught in the art rooms and were canned. Fun fact, their replacement teachers are now happily married after they met there. Must be a normal thing in high schools. I bet they just got plastic surgery and kept their jobs. Automotive mechanics program in high school. The teacher was suspected to be doing drugs. In class often it looked like signs of withdrawal would take over and entirely consume him. It turns out he was doing drugs because when he was let go we found needles and spoons under the seat of a school vehicle we had been working on. I hope he's doing well. It was sad to see him deteriorate in a short amount of time. Edit, for this person's protection and recovery process I will not disclose where or who. We had a teacher in his 30s who was rumored to ask pretty graduating seniors to hang out in the last week of school, so technically he wasn't sleeping with students. Welp, he asked the wrong girl and she told everyone.